Hello and welcome to the content creation introductory writing course. So this is a 45-minute introduction to content writing for many purposes, really. It could be for you to move your business forward, for you to develop your expertise, for you to help promote a cause that you're really passionate about, or really my favorite thing is writing as a process of self-realization. And the difference between writing in your journal to help inquire who you are and what you believe in and go deeper into it, and actually sharing with the world is that there's something else that happens when you post it, when you publish it, when you share it. And in that conversation you invite with the world, it tends to move the process forward even more and amplify and expand the ideas that you are excited about. So you could be here for any number of reasons. You could just be here because you're like curious to see Ariel in the desert living in a camper suddenly, and that's legit also. Probably secretly, though, you have a writer in there and you want to write. So have a pen and a paper ready because we're going to do some little mini exercises together. And oh, Stacy wants to be more confident in writing in general. Absolutely. Oh, Joshua, your audio's not working. Yeah, come back, make it work. Okay. Or so, oh, and just so you know, I muted you all. If you're trying to talk and you write instead into the chat box if you need to share something with me until the end, then I'm gonna unmute you. Okay, so let's delve into the slideshow. And as I just get this going, will you take a moment to make yourself comfortable? Make sure you like where you're sitting. You can wiggle back into your chair. Make sure you have your notebook and your pen arranged in a nice place. I have mine just beside me here where I can reach with my right arm because I'm a righty. And you can even just close your eyes for a moment and sense what brings you here to this class today. If you can, even remember that moment, that spark where you're like, yeah, I think there might be something in that for me. I'm going to show up. And let that spark be the fuel, the ignition for your presence here today. So if possible, really be fully present. Try not to be distracted by the outer world. Try not to be distracted by your phone or your dog. And really show up for that spark, because there's probably a whole frickin' bonfire of magic in there, okay? All right, here we go. Okay, so I am going to collapse this down to just one little Ariel in the corner. And here we are, the Content Creation Writing Course, Introduction to Content Writing. Now, if you're confused about what the word content means, it's kind of a newer buzzword around any shareable information that a brand or a human offers the world in this day and age. And the really cool thing about content creation, creating content, is it's the new wave of marketing. And it's it can be a very authentic style of marketing to basically just delve into what you really believe in, what you're excited about, and shape content through writing that shares, expresses, and illustrates what you're passionate about. And to put that first before you ask for any kind of sale from anyone, or ask for their signature, or ask for them to join your cause, is what gives them the space and the permission to decide for themselves if they believe in it, if it's right for them. And personally, I'm kind of like a rebel heart, so I don't like to be told what to do. So I really love when I have time and space to hear from someone, to read about what they're doing, to listen to their podcast before I decide to opt in. And that's what you can do with content writing as well. Steven Pressfield, author of Turning Pro, which was a life-changing book for me, says our job in this life is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine we ought to be, but to find out who we already are and become it. And I believe that through the process of writing, we can have that process of self-discovery of who we really are and become it. Why write? These are the 3 topics we're going to cover today on why you might want to write, and we'll do mini practices too so you can actually get to work. First, to engage your interests. Second, to build your expertise. And third, to do your purpose. And I know that's a little bit of an awkward sentence. I wanted it that way on purpose. I didn't want to say to live your purpose. I wanted to say to do it, to do your purpose, because when you're writing, you are doing something. I bet that made a lot of poppy sounds in the mic, all those D's. So first, to engage your interests. The writing process often begins intuitively. So you're just like strangely drawn to some topic or idea. For instance, when I was a little girl, I was just obsessed with horses. And then I was obsessed with dogs. And then in my teens, I started getting obsessed with existential philosophy. And on and on and on. I became obsessed with posture through running. I became obsessed with yoga asana, these physical poses that somehow changed my world when I got into them. So it often begins intuitively. You're strangely drawn to some topic or idea. Many of you know I co-wrote a book called Smitten, The Way of the Brilliant Flirt with my dear friend Simone. And that started with just a hilarious conversation about flirting and how like people actually really fall for you when you're weirdly authentically yourself, which we weren't seeing that message out there that much. It just begins with this idea or topic that you're strangely drawn to. And it then evolves by including both your curiosity and your cognitive skills. So instead of just hanging out on the beach in your interest, you're actually through the process of writing, pulling in both those kind of unconscious, strange intrigues with your cognitive skills, with the work of your neocortex, your ability to think and problem solve and create meaning and shape meaning. That's a brain. The practice of writing multiple drafts reveals why you were curious about that topic in the first place. So I bet some of you have experienced this where you're like, I don't know why I'm so drawn to, let's say, the topic of fasting. It makes no sense. It's basically starving yourself. Why on earth would you be drawn to the idea of fasting? By going into writing it, studying it, writing about it, exploring it, seeing what other things it triggers in your mind, and creating multiple drafts of research around it and self-exploration through the topic, it will be revealed to you that it's probably not about not eating at all. I have kind of like this weird thing with fasting, and it's about emptiness, and it's about silence, and it's about stillness and going down to zero. And for me, going down to zero makes all things possible. It's like that point where anything could happen. But I wouldn't know that if I hadn't spent time writing about fasting. And it delivers the joy of enriching yourself with your beloved topic while simultaneously becoming a source of personal growth. So none of us know how successful we're going to be in this life, right? We don't know if we're going to get the love that we hope for, or that maybe you want many, many loves that you hope for. We don't know if we're going to get all the money we want or the house we want. So why not spend your days enriching yourself, just baking and simmering in the topics that turn you on. I wrote a piece a little while ago that a lot of people responded to on my newsletter about how riding my rocket ended a lame-ass relationship. Because when I was getting up every day and writing, I didn't have patience for this inadequate lame-ass relationship I was in. And nothing had changed, right? I hadn't suddenly made more money. I didn't suddenly have a new beau. I just was in my interest, and that changed how I related to the rest of the world. I was hanging out with it. Okay, so the first reason to write is to engage your interest. Now, we're going to do a mini practice. It's called a lightning brainstorm. So get your pen out, dip your quill feather in the ink. We're going to do this in just 30 seconds. So the question is, what are your top interests these days, big or little? Go, just write out all your top interests these days. Don't judge them, just write them. Okay, now the 30 seconds is done. That wasn't very long, was it? But I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on my list. It's okay if you only got a half of one, okay? Will you just review your list and see if anything's missing that you're like, oh, it didn't come out right away, but there's this other thing I am really interested in. Just take a little review moment and see if you need to add anything else. And you also might be surprised by what's come up. When we ask our body to just do something really fast, like before even thinking, sometimes it tricks us into an insight about something we're into that we regularly repress or push down. Like on my list came up desire. I don't normally think about desire, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, hell yeah, like desire is the inroad. That's what we're doing right now. Our interest is like desire. It's so beautiful. Now, will you circle one that surprised you? And then will you circle one that's just like one that's been there forever? Like you've always been into that topic. It's always come back around. Like for me, the first word on my list is silence. I'm obsessed with silence. And then just peruse and see if there's anything else that you're like, I want to circle that too, just because I want to. Very good. Marty Rubin says, cultivate interests. Interests are a shield against despair. And as most of you know, my background is as a yoga and meditation teacher, which is definitely all about practices to help support health, well-being, which includes feelings of, it's not always happiness, but finding sense of peace and joy. And regularly engaging with your interests just magnetizes, pulls out of you all the positive hormones to help support your well-being. Interest can be a shield against despair. And what more beautiful way to honor your interests than regularly engaging them through writing? I saw that picture, I'm like, oh, right, that's basically me when I was 6. Okay. The next reason we would want to regularly write is to build expertise. Now, regular writing is a commitment to your highest potential. I have created the definition of self-realization that it is to take responsibility for your highest potential. And regular writing to me represents showing up for your highest potential. Your expertise becomes firmly rooted when you show up and write, rain or shine. So that expertise really deepens when you're not just a fair weather writer. You actually show up and write no matter how you're feeling. Because sometimes there's magic in the storm, you know what I'm saying? And those of you who are basically all of you who've hit some really low lows in this life, you know that down at the bottom there, I once had a dream that I was going down under the dark, murky surface of the ocean, and there were all these gems. And you know that there are gems down there. And I find writing to actually be an alchemical process where we turn the shit of life into gems. We can. Like, just listen to your favorite sad love song. That's someone turning the shit of their life into poetry. Each piece you write refines and integrates your knowledge. It moves you to the next threshold. So sometimes people are worried, like, am I going to run out of ideas? No, because you have to explore the idea you're in now to then be delivered to the threshold of the next idea. And writing, it doesn't dry up everything inside you. It actually opens and opens the faucet more and more, and your creativity will flow more and more, and ideas keep flowing. Writing keeps fresh knowledge at your fingertips, making you confident, articulate, and positioning you as a leader in your field. So I ran my first content creation course in September, and it's been really exciting to hear back from the participants. A lot of them sharing how when they're showing up to teach their classes now or to promote to a client or network, they're able to articulate what they do and the ideas they're excited about so much more clearly because they're in the privacy of their own home and their I was going to say studio, but like office, wherever they do their writing. They're taking the time to articulate their ideas for themselves. Okay. Mini practice, expert status. So grab your pen, and what we're going to explore here is, what would it be so fun to be an expert in this life? If you got to be an expert in something, what would it be so fun to be an expert in? Write for 2 minutes, just free write on what it would be so fun to be an expert in. I'm setting a timer. Go, 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 riff, riff, riff. You might hear chickens in the background of my recording. Think of the people you'd get to hang out with if you were an expert in your field. Think of the places you would get to go. I bet for a lot of you, it's not even fancy. It's like, I get to hang out with these salt of the earth people that I've always been drawn to. But it's okay if you want to hang out with Meghan Markle and Prince Harry too, because they have a lot of influence. So, you know, if you're sharing your stuff with him, it like sprinkles it all over the land. 20 more seconds. Keep writing. Okay, that's a wrap. Put down your pen. Next, quote from Jill Conrath: "If you're not learning, you're falling behind. Somebody else is getting better as you're becoming less valuable." I felt like this was kind of a harsh quote, but I also think it's a really important quote because we live, from what I see, we live in this age of entitlement. Like, we think we should give half-ass effort and expect full-ass results from the world. You know what I mean? Like, I should be able to just put a little something out there and get a lot back. And that's just like the law of energy, like laws of physics don't work like that. Like, if you want that ball to bounce high, you got to throw it down hard. And I'm encouraging you through writing to throw it down, to build your expertise, to show up regularly, putting that effort into continually learning, not just from the outer world and studying, but integrating that with your inherent wisdom. That's probably gotten kind of stuffed by society, but we're not going to go there today. That's a different free class altogether, okay? Anyway, continual improvement. First, for yourself, and second, it helps you become more valuable in this manifest world. Okay, to do your purpose. Regular writing keeps you on your purpose. It keeps you coming back to what you really value and believe in. It's like this anchor that takes you back to your purpose. I have some pencil animation in this slide. It designs and defines who you are in an industry and as a creative, and thereby shapes the world. So it doesn't just shape who you are in an industry and help forge it. The fire of your writing forges you into the image of your purpose. By doing that, you're also helping shape and move the world forward. Writing gives you a voice and leaves marks. It speaks for you in your absence. So many people who I connect with first connected with me first through writing. They read something I wrote. I wasn't there. They were off on their iPad somewhere else in the world. They read something I wrote and it connected to them. And they realized we were kindred spirits and they might have more they wanted to learn from me or share with me. It speaks for you in your absence. And in this day and age, if you have a smattering of writings out there that can represent what you believe in and what you know, it's wild how they can launch your career forward. Last winter, I just wrote one random blog post, or it was 2 winters ago, one random blog post about teaching mindfulness and yoga in a corporate environment. I ran into someone on the street who was a student who was doing an event at Yale, and she's like, "Can you come to Yale and teach mindfulness?" And 2 months later, I'm teaching mindfulness at Yale University. I still have, I have it right here. I still have the frickin' handbag. And I'm like, I didn't think I would be teaching. I keep my toiletries in it. That doesn't say anything about what I think about Yale. I didn't think I would be teaching at Yale. The piece of writing did it for me. Speaks for you in your absence. And you will never be able to say it all in one piece. So regular content creation will keep you true to your path. It keeps you honest. Okay. Now, mini practice, your ideal audience. So if you do take my course ever, we actually spend a lot of time connecting with who our ideal audience is, because oftentimes people who have the urge to write and share, they're riddled with self-consciousness. They're afraid what they're going to do is selfish, and all these things come up. When you tune into who you're writing for, it stops making it be about you. And when you have that person in mind and how you want to touch and support and help them, the writing is drawn out of you. So for this mini practice, I want you to think about who you would love to serve or support through your life's work. What would it feel like to connect with those people? So, like I said before, this isn't about you don't need to feel like you have to connect with people. You have to be in service to people in poverty, or you have to be in service to women or to men or to people of a certain age group or to people who've had certain injuries. All people need support and information. And oftentimes, it's people who have a lot of influence that your work would have the biggest impact on. If there was any way I could become the president's yoga teacher, I would. I would love to become the president's yoga teacher. I would love to have that influence over the president. I don't think I'm going to get there. I just don't think it's in the cards. But I want you to feel free to sense who would you love to connect with. And likely it's a whole spectrum, right? Because I find people who are on the vibration I love to party with, who are, have like a thimble of stuff and are living so simply, and their path isn't about huge influence. And I also have people who are very established, even famous, who've come to me for help and support and guidance. And oftentimes they're the same vibration. They're just dressed up as different characters in this life. So I hope you feel free to want to help and serve who you want to help and serve and connect with and party with, okay? We are doing this in 2 minutes. Get writing. Who would you love to serve and support through your life's work? What would it feel like to connect with those people? Connect to the feeling as you do this. Setting a timer, and I'm going to try to be quiet for 2 minutes. Fif 15 more seconds. All right, put your pencils down, ladies and germs. You know what song I just got in my head? So strong. Remember this? Butterfly in the sky, I can fly twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow, reading rainbow. Remember that TV show? It was all about the magic of reading. Thanks for visiting me. Okay, next. Maya Angelou. Oh, God, she's good. People will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this is I was wondering if I should put this quote in here at all, because it goes to another level, but I know you all can handle it, which is that Words are carriers. It's not ultimately about the words, it's about what the words represent. It's about the words really like doorways into the wardrobe that takes you to Narnia, into a feeling space, into a place of possibility. Ultimately, all this shakes down to how you feel and how you help others feel. We use our words, of course, to shape reality. Thanks, Maya. Okay, we're clipping right along here. And now, the SFD, also known as the shitty first draft. Now, a lot of writers get stuck because they want the first draft to look polished. They want it to look really finished. And when they're writing, they have these just gremlins of critics hanging out on their shoulders, being like, that's a terrible sentence. That's poor grammar. You don't know how to spell. That's too flowery and poetic. That doesn't make any sense. And so they stop themselves. You have to write a shitty first draft to get to the fun part of shaping and polishing and refining those drafts. And one of my jobs right now is I manage and edit the blog for Tune Up Fitness. Tune Up Fitness is a fitness therapy company. And what I do is source contributors from our teaching pool. Many of these people are not writers, but they're awesome teachers with great ideas. So I've spent the last year and a half every week working with people with varying levels of writing skill to shape their brilliance into finished pieces. And what often is the breakthrough for them, or what really helps them, who the ones who are non-writers, is when I say, just barf it out on a page and send it to me, and I'll help take you to the next step. You have to have that initial shit/barf phase, okay? We're going to do a mini one right now. Here's a great quote from Anne Lamott, a very famous book called Bird by Bird about writing. She says, perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life, and it is the main obstacle between you and a shitty first draft. I think perfectionism is based on the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is that you will die anyway, and that a lot of people who aren't even looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a lot more fun while they're doing it. From Anne Lamott's words to your pen, we must embark upon the shitty first draft. All right. Mini practice, the tiny shitty first draft. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to think of one person you'd love to help out, so you can reference your notes from earlier, and then you're going to intuitively free write a simple message to them, sharing an insight or bit of information, giving them a message that could help them out. So what you can do is re-reference the very first list of things that turn you on, that excite you. And look at that list and pick one topic, it might be something that you circled, that encapsulates what you'd love to offer this person. And for 5 minutes, you're just gonna free write. Like you're talking to them. Just let anything come out. Let it come out of your imagination. Let a story come out. Let facts come out. Let it all come out. And you know what you got for this? 5 whole minutes. Go deep. I'm starting the timer right now. And begin vomiting all over your page. Just keep writing, just keep writing. Think of that person. Think of the message you really want to deliver. It could be multiple people too, if that's where you're at. Give examples that will appeal to them, that will make sense to them. Be ridiculous. Use incomplete sentences. Use poor grammar. Let it all fly. You're halfway there. Keep going. Keep going. Free associate if you get stuck. Let a childhood memory come up if it comes up. If emotions start to arise, you know you're really on to something. Any and all emotions are sign points that you're touching on something vital. You might hear a power saw in addition to some chickens. 45 seconds. Squeeze the last bit out of that toothpaste container. Ding, 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 ding. Great job. Put your pencil down. Look at your chicken scratch. Good work. Now take a deep breath. In and out. And just look at what you've written down so far. Look at all the writing that you've just done. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about my course, and then I want to touch on the last bit, which is how to get through that fear of quote, putting yourself out there. That stops a lot of people from sharing. A lot of people are closet writers, but they don't share. So the course, the content creation writing course, it's a 4-week course. It starts a week from Tuesday. I'll record it live through Zoom, so you can come live on the call, but I'll also be recording it just like this, so you can watch it later if you can't make it to the live course. There's going to be worksheets every week that you'll fill out, and there'll be 4 personal sessions with me where I'll do coaching with you on helping hone your focus, who you really want to write to, what you want to write about, and connecting that to your business and professional goals. So by the end of the course, you'll have chosen the topic you're writing on for 6 months that's aligned with your professional goals. You'll have a content calendar with monthly themes and weekly topics for all 6 months. So you'll have your plan all laid out for what to write about. You'll have a template in place for how you write each week. I always have the same template I work with on my newsletters. And you'll have chosen your platform to publish on or post through, and be ready to start sharing with the world. So that's what we're doing it's a 4-week course. And information live on Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Coaching sessions, worksheets, and it's $425. So if you're interested in that, I'm taking up to 8 people in the course, and it starts in November. And it's crazy cheap, I mean, compared to my usual hourly, because I'm establishing this. It's my second round, and I'm really just excited in digging in, learning, and like serving you as best as I possibly can before I polish it more and more and increase the cost of it. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email later and let me know, and I would love to have you in the full course. Onward, because we have 2 more minutes. Finally, how to deal with your fears of putting yourself out there. Hint, put your purpose above all. This is a great quote by Ray Bradbury from Zen in the Art of Writing. You must stay drunk on writing, so reality cannot destroy you. And I'm going to close the screen share to talk about this putting yourself out there topic. Okay. All right. Yay, you're all here. So as many of you know, I have been in and out of the public eye since I was 19 when I was on The Sopranos. And being in and out of the public eye like this, having published a book and gone on a radio tour and doing public speaking, being a New York City yoga teacher, teaching to very full classrooms, has given me the experience over and over of noticing how people, when they see you as an object and they see your work as an object, bounce themselves off of you. And sometimes over this time, I've gotten all kinds of messages. Some of them are kind and loving and supportive. Some of them are people who really connect to things I'm doing or have stories they want to share. And some of them are downright rude, violent, nasty, and threatening. And the thing that I have come to realize through it all is that none of it has anything to do with me. Once I was on a hike in Runyon Canyon, which is in Los Angeles, and I hiked up to the top, and there was this little stump, and I saw it, and it was this perfect stump to sit on. So I sat down on that stump, and I was looking at the view, and someone's dog came up and pissed on me. And I was like looking at the owner, I'm like, does this person know their dog just pissed on me? And the person didn't really know, so I didn't have that, I felt entitled to an apology from their dog pissing on me. But the thing is, the dog just pissed on the stump because the stump was there. Like, it was the dog's pissing stump. I didn't know I was sitting on the pissing stump for all the dogs. And I happened to be there. And when you put things out, you just happen to put something out there. And some people, when they walk around through life, they just piss. They just piss everywhere. And if you're there and you've put something out, you might get in the way of their pissing, okay? It has nothing to do with you. So I find if I'm just staying connected to who's my target audience, who do I want to touch, who do I want to help evolve, who do I want to support, and make that the strongest thing in my crosshairs, then if I get a little piss on me here and there, it's like, I stink for a day. I smell it. I don't like it. I wash my clothes. Life goes freaking on. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes some of those pissers come back around and they actually, usually they really want to connect. They just don't know how. I'm like, you're just awkward. You like piss instead of saying hi. But anyway, they're a different kind of animal, right? So I hope that was inspirational. Story of getting pissed on. And I would love to hear from any of you, any observations. And I want to remind you that this is being recorded and I'm going to share it with people who want to hear more about this course. So if you don't want to be on video, you definitely, you can just like write the question in or keep your video off and just ask on audio or share on audio any questions, okay? I have to make it so that you can manage participants, unmute all. Okay, I unmuted you, but now I'm going to remute you so you don't have, or you can remute yourself if I don't get to it, so that you don't have to be heard if you don't want to. Or I don't know what you're doing. Sounds like no one's doing anything too controversial in the background because I don't hear anything crazy. Okay, cool. Will you either write in the chat box or just pop on if you want to chat or reflect on anything that came up in that process? And I'll see you unmute yourself if you want to come on, and I'll be like, yeah, talk to me. No questions came up? Did you all get to do a little writing and actually see your writing coming to life? Ooh, Emma, do you have something you want to say or share or ask?
Yeah, thank you. That was very, I always enjoy your courses. I've participated in a few now. So thank you. I love seeing it coming from the scamp. I am a like almost daily journaler. I studied English and I love writing but I've never, and I write like things at work, so I completely am on board all of the connection to purpose and all of the insights that we glean from having a writing practice. But the idea of like sharing that, like taking that step to sharing, is a big one for me. And I found in the exercise of like even using like a you form of speaking to someone was quite interesting for me. But I don't like how it kind of comes out as like giving advice. And obviously that's something to fine tune, but I guess, yeah, I sort of just wanted to share that shifting to sharing is a tricky piece for me.
Yeah, and I think that really points to choosing your style in a way that works for you. I totally agree that the feeling of giving advice can feel really icky.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different inroads to writing. We go into them in the course. For example, just like telling a story and sharing a story, or saying, you know, this worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for you, but I want to just put it out there in case you connect. Or like there's so many different ways that you can take the essence of what you're writing and offer it up for people to take or leave, um, without feeling like you're shellacking your agenda on them. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely a process. And I know the feeling from crossing the line and then pulling back too, from being like, oh, I have an icky feeling after I sent that one. It feels a little preachy. And
Mm-hmm.
usually when I have an icky feeling, it's because I didn't spend enough time on my drafts to get to the final draft. Because when you're doing your combing of like, is this how I want this to feel? Is this speaking to the person I want it to? Do I feel really good about every word in this? I find it's like several days. Like you need to sleep on it and come back to it. But if you do take a cause, like you're up there in Vancouver and you're like totally dialed into nature, and if there is a cause, let's say for instance around nature that you feel really passionate about, and you wind up, let's say just for fun, creating a blog for 6 months following a project or sharing what it's like to volunteer for an organization, that feeling of love for the cause will help draw the communication out of you, but also the process of writing will help you find out what your voice is and what works and doesn't work for you. But it's amazing what just telling stories does.
Mm.
And I think it's always fun to be self-effacing. Like, I finished this by telling you a story of me getting pissed on. And that tends to make people more comfortable. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that story, by the way.
Yes, thank you. I think so. I'm glad.
Thanks.
Hi, Ariel.
Hey, Liz.
I have a question. I also am a journaler, and I tend to write, sometimes even in my journals and in my diaries, really idealistic, almost disgustingly saccharine, like hopefulness that then I read back and it makes me want to puke. And then so sometimes I put out that. So it's like I'm not real, but I'm sort of ideal. And in my Instagram, if I write a post, I always like almost make it too perfect. Like I come to some positive lesson out of everything, which I think could be really annoying, potentially. So it's hard for me to not wrap it up with a nice bow, and get to the messy, ugly truth, which is what I would prefer to say, and not, you know what I'm talking about? So maybe it's some drafts, but do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think probably a lot of people can relate to that. So you do a saccharine first draft instead of a shitty first draft, right? It's like, ooh, this is just too sweet. First of all, I think your self-awareness is the starting point. And the cool thing about committing to regular writing is its self-realization. So what you wrote a year ago, you might go back and be like, whoa, I'm able to go 3 layers deeper than I could then, but you have to be in the place you're in to get to the next place. So I would say, if let's say you do your saccharine first draft and you've tied it all up with a bow, and you look at that and you look at like, okay, there's the bow. And on the next draft, you actually untie the bow. And it could be in the moment after. It could be reflecting on your own process saying, you know, I really want to tie this up for you all. Like, that's my urge. I'm a positive thinker. I want to like just shellac positivity over this. But the truth is, this issue is still open for me. And this is why, and this is how, and this is the unfinished business in this post. The really annoying thing is when you're very honest and you show your wormy underside, that's when people flood in and they're like, thank you so much, because I can relate to your hope and I can also relate to your sorrow. So it is a practice, and I find it's like, and I know you love to do courageous things because you're a Leo. Like, I find it's like, okay, last week I tied it up for them. This week I'm going to be a little bit braver. This week I'm going to put in 1 sentence and see if I die. Like, see if the sky crashes if I put in that extra thing. The newsletter I just recently put out about crashing emotionally in Los Angeles, I probably wouldn't have put that out a year ago. And for me, it was like no big deal at this point. I'm like, of course I crashed when I got to Los Angeles. It was actually the scariest part for me to share with the public was the part about how there's some part of me that feels unfinished business with acting and feels like sad that I never was successful in acting in the way that 19-year-old Ariel really wanted to be. And I've shellacked that over with, I made that decision, it was up to me. But the fact is, at that age, I had radical acne. I was regularly commented on my weight, that I wasn't thin enough, and it hurt being an actor. And I had to leave, half because, yeah, I didn't want to deal with that shit, and half because it hurt being there. And so there's some part of me that I left there when I left. And sharing that with you is hard, but I know you can relate, right? If I'm just like, I solved it, I took care of it all, you're going to be like, I can't relate to you. So I think it's one risky sentence at a time. Then you find out if you die and have no friends after. And if you don't, you do 2 risky sentences the next week. You're probably just ready. You're probably just ready to go a little warmier now, or else you wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah.
But you got to start where you are, and it's okay to hang out there for a while. Does that give you food for thought?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Holly, did you want to share or ask something?
Yeah, I was going to share, and I've tried my video. My video doesn't work. I don't know why, so I apologize.
Not at all.
So I'm an odd bird because I teach writing, except I'm terrified to put my own writing out there. So I teach other people to do this, but I won't do it myself. So that's me.
What does the terror say? Like, what are you afraid might happen? I mean, I could guess, but I'm curious to hear from you.
I think the terror says everybody else is smarter than I am, and this is stupid, and they already know this.
And does all of you believe that, or is that just the loudest voice?
That's the loudest voice.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing I would reflect back to you is that I think when you teach something for a living, sometimes it's the hardest thing to do yourself because you supposedly are an expert in it. Like when I was teaching yoga professionally, I would really stick to the poses that I felt really comfortable with because it was uncomfortable to show poses that I hadn't mastered yet. So I think it's really natural for like the protection of your professional identity to want to like, can I do this also? Can I teach acting and be an actor at the same time? Can I teach writing and be a writer? But there is the main thought I'm thinking when I think about what you're asking is or saying is like, there's a bravery necessary to walk through the fire. And like, I think one reason I love to create courses and intimate courses that have coaching and small groups is because when you're part of a group that's all doing the same thing and overcoming that fear together, you have community. And one of the biggest fears is that we're going to get kicked out of the family. We're going to get kicked out of the tribe. And so actually having an intimate group and it's scary for everyone and we're all doing it together helps give you that feeling of people have your back to start taking the steps. But there definitely is courage involved. And you can do it a little bit at a time. So it could just be practicing how you're writing an email differently. You can do it a little bit at a time, or you can pick a topic to write publicly about that seems like it's not about writing. Like if you have a cause you're passionate about, you're like, I'm just delivering information. So you can set yourself up with circumstances that it's not like I'm creating wonderful writing now to share with you. It's like, I'm just telling you, you brought up weird birds. I'm just telling you about this odd bird that showed up in my neighborhood. Like there was this weird, like tropical bird that showed up in Prospect Park a few years ago. Like you could have just written 6 things about that to tell people about the bird, but secretly you're practicing writing. So 3 things: community, walk through the fire on purpose, but you can just step on just a couple little coals to begin with. Okay. And write about something that feels like you can skirt around the idea that you have to be an amazing writer.
Thank you.
Some ideas. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Oh, Erin's here. Hey, girl. I'm seeing if anyone's coming off mute. Okay. Have we done it? We made it a full hour. Woohoo! So will you please, tomorrow, not today, look over the writing that you did. And you could do it today if you don't have a lot of gremlins running around your ankles.
Ariel?
Yeah?
Oh, I think somebody was trying to get off mute. If you look in the chat, there might have been one question.
Okay. Ellen, You're always an advocate for people, Ellen. Oh, look in the chat. I can't come off mute. Oh, Joshua, let me see if I can take you off mute. No, you can't. You've, oh, wait.
There we go.
Hi.
It did the thing. Hey,
Yay.
I actually came into this not knowing how useful it would be because, like the previous speaker said, I've been an English teacher for 9 years. And so I've always considered myself a good writer, but I don't write. And I know what I want to write about, but I don't write. And every time I tried to start writing, it would just kind of feel like I was throwing stones in the dark. And one of the things that I just found useful about this was kind of the way that you gave steps on how to start thinking about something to write about and then writing about it, and that knowing where to focus was very helpful. I spent the last 9 years of my life teaching English in China, and I've wanted to write about it forever, and I never knew where to kind of start without rambling. And I also have that same fear that someone else mentioned, where I want it to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it's not going anywhere. And so I'll write it, and then it'll sit in a notebook for years. So that was helpful. That was probably the first thing I've ever written about that experience ever, and it was easier than I expected it to be.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And this is kind of like a micro version of what we do in the course, what we did, but embedded in the course are all these exercises to trick you into writing and to trick you into creating a content calendar of like a full half year's worth of ideas. Because I find when it's like blank page, I could do anything. It's just too much. Like, what do you do with that? But when, like you're saying, like when you hone in on like what you're excited to write about, who you're talking to, and then you just have some prompts, like that thing wants to be tapped. It's been waiting. Like you got a lot of sap that's going to turn into maple syrup through the refining process of editing. And it's probably like, do you feel it pressing from the inside? Like when you have something you want to write and share and you're like, oh, get down. But it's like, I chose you to be written through. Show up, dude.
Yeah.
So not to make it a plug about my course, but it is nice to have someone else be the facilitator and to get to show up and be a mess too. So if you are curious about the course, check it out because it's super cheap right now and you don't have to be in charge, you know? And it's quite irreverent, as you might notice, so things aren't very precious. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, cool. Erin, did you want to say something?
Yeah, if I know we're running low on time, but that
You'll be our last hurrah.
thanks. That just kind of sparked something in me, which is I feel like I have the opposite problem. I like couldn't think of anything that I wanted to be an expert in, and I couldn't think of anyone that I wanted to talk to. Maybe because I'm like, as a lot of other people said, I journal every day, and so like the thought of just like showing up to a blank page and writing whatever is on my mind like is not scary. Like that's actually the thing that's easiest for me, but having to like maybe put a stake in the ground and try to pick a topic that I want to become an expert in. I don't know, the voices are just like, yeah, I never expected to be an expert in anything. Like I'm just not cut out for that. I don't know. So all these exercises were really hard for me because I couldn't think of anyone that I wanted to write to.
Okay, but you do have you had a couple things that you're interested in?
Even that, I was like, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe because there's so many that like the quick thinking of interests, like it doesn't bring anything to my, I don't know.
Yeah, so you know, Erin, like if we, and you actually wrote an amazing piece for the Tune Up blog, so I got to work with you a little bit on your writing. But The thing that comes up when I'm running these courses that is helpful to me is my background in the somatic experiencing and the trauma resolution work. Because when we get one-on-one on our coaching calls and I hear the words, I don't know, I don't care, like all this vagary comes up. To me, I'm like, oh, there's something about this amazing human's creativity that feels like it wants to come out, but it also maybe doesn't feel safe. It wants to hide. It's nervous about claiming something. And so I'm not really into forcing it out in the open, but there is usually just with more patience and presence and connecting, we can just kind of slowly coax out what is the first thing. And probably the first thing you want to write about isn't the biggest thing. Like I own the URL eatthedragon.com because I know one day I'm writing a book called Eat the Dragon about integrating all your freaking demons into who you are and respecting them and making them give you power. I'm not ready to write that book. Like maybe in my 70s I'll be ready. Right now I'm actually writing quite adjacent to what I'm really obsessed with, but I'm getting closer and closer and closer. And so what it might be for you, because you're a really natural writer and creative, is it's picking something outside over here that's like, it's a little treasure, it charms you, but it's not front and center yet, because you might need to build your resilience to have the confidence to write in a way that feels good and also be able to stand up and put something out there that feels really close to home for you. But you don't need to rush that. But when you start with a little guy over here, like little by little by little, you build through the process, you build it into center. But you don't want to write your opus tomorrow. Like you got time for that. But that's a lot why I like to do the coaching part, because all the things come up. Okay, we're going to do one more. Ron, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you.
Thanks, girl. Can you talk, Ron?
I can try. I have a voice.
You do.
How's that?
I can hear you.
Okay. You said, it's funny, you said a couple of things that totally triggered an insight for me. One was you made a comment about someone being a Leo, and I thought about how, as a Gemini, I'm a little bit, in opposition to myself. And as a writer, when I was younger, I thought my shit didn't stink, and which means that I never liked to hear any criticism or to be corrected. And then the problem with that is that you can't develop any rapport with anyone. You might be right sometimes, but it was actually, I behaved that way because I was insecure, because I thought everybody else was more educated than me. But the fact of the matter is, I don't have to understand why I can write. I just have to write and just let it go, and let it flow and fix it as I go along, or whatever the case may be. And the second thing I thought about was just along with that, is that I don't have to write something and immediately share it, because I think, well, that's it, your job is done. Today I had my biggest breakthrough in Las Vegas because I was published in the Las Vegas Review Journal, an op-ed that I wrote.
Amazing. Woohoo.
And a reporter who I keep in touch with said, why don't you submit something? So I actually had something I had already written, and I sat down and trimmed the fat, and it took me 5 minutes to just make it much leaner and much cleaner, so to speak. So, and I submitted it, and they ran it. But it's sort of sometimes you just have to learn how to be patient with writing and setting it aside, because you might look at it differently a few days later, or you might have a purpose come up for it that you weren't planning for. So, it's important to have, so you really have been an effective guide for me, because that's something now that will be one of the layers that will help to guide me to be a better writer, but to also not make it feel like it's some sort of burden.
Yes, it's so true what you were saying about like the friction of people responding and like it's not fun, but when people respond negatively, it really does ask us to go deeper, to communicate clearer, to or also the other thing is to really fall into like, no, I believe in what I'm saying and I'm sticking to it. It can do one or the other of like, yeah, I do need to improve. Or like, no, you're not going to push me down on this point. Like, I'm actually going to take my next post to write 20 reasons why this is legit. um, but congratulations on your article. And love that idea too of having writing in the bank. So true. When you have 6 things in the bank and you haven't brought them out to market yet, but then the right opportunity comes up, you can just slide it right in. Done. Like you said, tweak a few things. And that, my friend, is money in the bank one day.
Amen.
All right, y'all. This has been so fun to be out here in Southern California in the desert and get to connect with you all. Truly, it's a huge gift to me. So thank you so much for being here. Email me if you're interested in the course. It starts a week from Tuesday. And peace, love, writing, and money. Okay? Bye, y'all.